Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another FIFA 21 video where today we're going to be taking a look at my favorite formation this year. It is the 4-2-2 and we're going to be taking a look and answering a question that I've really had with this formation the last couple of days is this still a formation that is meta? Is this still a top tier formation? Because my experience the last week with this formation hasn't been great. Now, as many of you guys know who follow the channel regularly and watch videos regularly, you'll know that the 4-2-2 is my kind of go-to formation. It's my favorite formation, and it's a formation that I get on with probably the best this year in the game. But the last 6 weeks, I've been doing super well. I've been winning lots of games, doing really good with that formation. But the last week, I've just been really not great. Personally, I've not been great. I've not played very well. That has to be said. But I feel like a few things have changed with the 4-2-2, and maybe it's not quite as effective as it used to be. So we're going to be looking at a new set of tactics and just a few tweaks that I've made to this 4-2-2 recently to hopefully take it back to that top tier level and myself back to the level that I was playing at before, because I was very happy with the level I was at before. Now, a few grievances before we start. This is one reason why I keep saying in all our videos, it is super important to get the right players in the right position. Now, my team is very good, but the two players in this position, in this team, that I really dislike and I really need to get rid of are Rivaldo and Lozano. As wide cams, those two guys don't really fit the bill. Rivaldo's just not quick enough, but the rest of his card is fine. And Lozano doesn't have good enough passing. And I think he's a bit of a fake stat card. I think he's one of those who's just a bit of a... He's good for pace, and that's kind of it. His shooting is way below what it says. You know, his dribbling as well isn't great, isn't as good as it states. I think he's kind of a bit of a fake stat card. So those two positions are one of the contributing factors as to maybe why I've not been enjoying and maybe having as much success recently. Because those two players are kind of the link between the defensive midfield and the attack, and sometimes, and I have noticed that my attack breaks down a lot of the time when those two players are on the ball, which is why personnel is so important. Because, you know, you get it into your head with, for me, every time I get those two on the ball, I think, man, these two are just going to lose me the ball, and it gets into your head, and then you start playing within yourself, and then it's just a slippery slope from there. So I think that's the first thing to touch on. You know, personnel is so important. You have to get players you like and that you're confident with, because when you get into a situation like I've got, and I've got two players there that I don't really fancy, you know, it puts you in a position where you start struggling and not playing as well as you should. Moving on into the tactics, these are the tactics that I was using. These are kind of the 4-2-2 tactics that I was using and finding super effective. And I do think these need a bit of a tweak, because the game does get patched regularly, and little things need tweaking and changing. And when you play the game, you kind of notice, oh, this keeps happening, that player keeps being there, oh, that player's not there, or this isn't happening. And so you do need to change on the fly. Now, the pressure on heavy touch is a good place to start, because this is one of those things that generally is very good for me, but it's only against the really top quality players, you know, and that's relative to your skill level, is when it becomes an issue. Because against like good level players and players that are kind of equal skill to you, you will still catch them out with the press, but being higher skilled, they're able to play out of it as well. So you'll find that whilst it will still catch them out from time to time, they are going to get out, and then when they do get out of that press, a lot of the time, because a lot of the way people like to play this game, especially at the moment and recently, and this is another thing to touch on, a lot more people are setting up really defensively than they used to. So a lot of people are hitting you on counters more, and when you break out of a press and they've got 3, 4, 5, 6 players running forwards, and you've only now got maybe 3 defenders back, it becomes, you know, almost impossible for you to defend that situation. But I still want to stick with the pressure on heavy touch, because I still think it's really effective to have a press. I don't personally find it, certainly for the way I like to play, I'm not very good at like manually pressing myself. I do kind of, you know, like the AI to help me press in certain instances, and I just find that when I turn that off, it doesn't quite work for me. Width wise, I've moved that up to around about 6. I was finding that defensively I was getting beat a lot down the wings, but never really in the midfield, and that's because my defensive width was really narrow, so my midfield was really compact. But obviously being narrower, it's allowing my opponents to have a lot more space. And the fact that we don't have kind of wide midfielders as well means that those wings were very open. I was finding, especially, that my right back, Carlos Alberto, was leaving a lot of space out there, and it was just giving him a lot of, it was giving him a lot of difficult situations to try and defend, and I was conceding a lot of goals because maybe my defensive width was a little bit too narrow. So I just put that a little bit wider. Depth-wise, I actually went up to 8 depth at one point because I was thinking, I'm getting counted anyway, so I may as well play on a super high depth, because whether I play on like 4 depth or whether I play on 6, 7, 8 depth, I'm still getting counted anyway. But whilst that's a good process to have, it was just a little bit too over the top for me. So I've moved that back down to 6, and I felt that I was still high enough up the pitch that I could still press and be effective and kind of be the dominant force in the game, but still have enough space in behind and give my defenders enough time to catch up if they were out of position. Offensive, we still stick to long ball. That's still the way we go. Offensive width is probably the biggest change. I've moved my offensive width all the way up to around about 7. One thing that I was finding, especially because on the instructions, the wide cams, I like to have them on free roam. In certain scenarios, I was finding when I was attacking, everybody was so narrow. Like, you'd have, let's say I'd have Rivaldo on the ball. You'd have Neymar. You'd have the 2 central defensive midfielders. You'd have Ronaldo, the right striker, and you'd have Lozano, and they'd all be like practically on top of each other. They'd be so close together, and there'd be space out on the right, let's say, where Lozano would be for a through ball out there, and he would be sort of 5 yards away on the inside from Rivaldo, and they'd be so close together. So having that offensive width is good for having a better starting position, but when you have them on free roam as well, they can all get on top of each other and be too close together, and it just wasn't working. So I went slightly wider on the width, try to utilize the wings. 6 or 7 is a good width to play on. Just kind of utilize the wings and just have my team a little bit wider than it was. I was just finding they were a little bit too close together. Players in the box, corners and free kicks are exactly the same. And then the instructions is the next thing. We like to have the fullbacks on stable while attacking. Again, when you play against kind of mid-tier opposition, you can have these guys on balanced, and it's really fun. At the start of the year, I used to have my fullbacks on balanced all the time, and it was super, super fun to have those guys getting forwards. But again, when you play against good opposition, and it's kind of the same with the press on possession loss, when you play against top opposition who just kind of sit in and counter you, they just have the 99 pace wingers and strikers that, a Puskas, obviously a lot of people have got icons now, and you just get rinsed on the wings, and then you have to pull a centre back out, and then, that leaves a gap, and then the midfielder has to drop in, and then he leaves a gap, and it just kind of creates a chain reaction. So the fullbacks being on stay back while attacking is kind of the best way to deal with it, although it's maybe not how I'd like to play, it's just the way you have to deal with it. Moving into those defensive midfielders, these are probably the place where this is the most difficult to kind of try and balance this formation, and probably the area where I have the most difficulty. Because when you have these guys on stay back while attacking, I find that this formation becomes too defensive. You have that 6-4 split that everyone talks about. And I find for the way I like to play, it just doesn't work. I just can't play like that. And I just don't find it effective. I find there's just too much of a disconnect. But when I have these guys on balance and they go forwards, offensively, I feel a lot better. But every now and again, you do turn the ball over. And when you turn the ball over, because you don't have those midfielders there, your midfielders are up at the top end of the pitch attacking, there's just so much space for your opponent to exploit. And this is where it kind of dawned on me that, obviously being a bit of a tactic expert and whatnot, when you build a tactic, you're going to have to give something up. There's no such thing as a perfect tactic. There's no such thing as, the perfect tactic where there's no flaws and no errors. You have to give up something somewhere. And that kind of made me think with these midfielders, well, you can have them going forwards and offensively you'll be a lot better, but defensively you'll struggle. Or you can have these guys sitting back and defensively you'll be a lot more sound, but offensively you might struggle a little bit more, especially if somebody's playing really defensive, because now you'll only have 4 attackers to break the rest of the team down. So I did keep these guys on balance. I want to play that way, and I do think that just kind of getting back to my strengths is the best way to go. And then the 2 wide cams, like I said, these 2 are 2 players that I need to get rid of because I think that's impacting the way I play as well. But we still have them on free roam. I have them on get into the box now because I was finding that a lot of the time I would maybe sort of drill across to the back post because the cross would be there, and maybe it would just miss the first man. It would miss Neymar, Ronaldo, And you would see Lozano, for example, he'd be way out on the wing. You just kind of like, if you get in there at the back post, you have a tap in. So I've decided to put these guys and get in the box, and that has helped in terms of them scoring more goals. Definitely, I've noticed that their goals have been going up, but just sometimes in the build up and just things like that, they're just kind of not players I want to use. So that's something you do have to address. And then Neymar, who is one of my strikers, but the better passing striker, I have on false 9 to link up the midfield, and then Ronaldo just on getting behind. So is the 4-2-2 still a top tier tactic? Yes. I think some of the problem comes from obviously the way this game gets patched. Obviously certain little things change, and you have to just tweak your tactics normally I find with every patch. Getting the right players is super important, because now I've got a couple of players in the team that I don't want. Kind of just knocks your confidence when you're using them. You kind of get in your own head every time they get on the ball. And, you know, also the way other people are playing the game at the minute. A lot of people are playing the game really defensively for some reason. There's kind of just been a switch. You know, at the start of the year, not many people were playing really defensive. Everybody was kind of playing quite an attacking game, and now everybody's kind of flipped, and for every 10 games you'll play, maybe sort of 5, 6, 7 of those people are playing really defensive FIFA, and it just kind of creates a little bit of an issue for your own tactics, because the way I build my own tactics, I build them so that I'm the aggressor in the game. And obviously if everybody's countering, that's going against my tactics, and maybe why the last week or so I've been struggling a little bit. So you just have to adapt your game and adapt your tactics as well. So do I think the 4-2-2 is still a great formation? Absolutely. Is it maybe as effective as it has been the past couple of weeks? Maybe not, but maybe, you know, with these new tactics that I've got, maybe it will be a lot better, and I'll be back to winning lots of games, hopefully. And if you guys want to try these out, make sure you do go and try them out, and let me know how they go in the comment section below. Make sure you join our Discord. We are over 100 members now in the Discord, which is absolutely amazing. So if you guys want to join in and get some more tips on how to improve at FIFA, link to that will be down in the description. Make sure you subscribe as well if you are new to the channel. But that is all today, guys. Have an awesome day. I'm out.